This is a slightly abridged version of the story in solid gold. It's a bit of a slow starter, so try not to fall asleep if you, or if you do it quietly. It's called Unstable. Although it was only 9 in the morning, I had chosen a table in the shade. Even at that time of day, the Barcelona sun was too hot for a hangover. The waiter had just finished taking my order when someone started making a ruckus up the street. Both the waiter and I looked in the direction of the noise. An old man was lying on the pavement shouting. I didn't know what he was shouting about, but from the noise he was making I assumed he was drunk. The waiter pulled a face and went to get my breakfast. The old guy who was making all the noise crawled along the pavement nearer to where I was sitting. He was wearing a shabby dark grey suit, and his one foot was bare. His left leg must have been amputated above the knee because his empty trouser leg was dragging along after him. I was hoping he didn't come too close. He was completely out of it, ranting and raving about God only knows what, while dragging himself along the ground. I was relieved when he stopped coming my way and rolled onto his back. Kicking his leg up in the air, he reminded me of a spoilt kid. He continued riding and shouting and generally making a spectacle of himself until an old woman went up to him. She was shaking a finger at him as she spoke. He listened for a while, then stuck his tongue out at her and wiggled it obscenely. The old woman walked away, and the old man roared with laughter. The waiter put my coffee, juice and toast on the table and then stood in the doorway to watch the old man. I drank the much needed juice straight down. My previous night's drinking hadn't solved anything. I wouldn't have been breakfasting on my own if it had. Janine had been as disgusted as that old woman, but at least I was sober now, which is more than could be said of the old man. He was lying on the pavement, shouting louder than ever. He was still shouting when a policeman appeared. After looking up and down the street, the policeman said something to him. The old man continued hollering. A few people were standing round watching, but most just glanced sideways at the old man as they went about their business. The policeman indicated for the old man to get up, but instead of getting up, he started crawling into the road. It wasn't a busy road and it was only one way, but there was enough traffic to make it dangerous for a crawling man. The policeman bent down and took hold of the empty trouser leg and tried to pull him back onto the pavement, but that was a mistake because it gave the old man the idea of taking his trousers off. The policeman let go as soon as he realised what the old man was doing, but it was too late. The old man had wriggled free of his trousers and was now in the road with his one good leg and his stump uncovered. The policeman walked into the road to stop the traffic. He also got on his radio. My waiter brought the other waiter out to see what was going on. They were both laughing. The policeman was remonstrating with the old guy, but the old guy obviously didn't give a damn. He was removing his underpants. So now, all his tackle, as well as his stump, was on display. I was glad I wasn't any closer. It wasn't a pretty sight. I was almost sorry Janine wasn't there to enjoy the entertainment. She was still upstairs in our room. Depending on which way you looked at it, either I had gone to breakfast too early to get away from her, or she had deliberately hung back so I would leave her alone. Coming to Spain had been a mistake. We'd been together for 3 years, and although we'd had a tempestuous relationship, it had been fun. Now the fun seemed to be over. Janine thought the answer was for us to have a child. We'd been arguing about it ever since she'd first mentioned it on the plane coming over. I was tired of arguing. The old guy was causing a traffic jam. Lorry drivers were sounding their horns, waiting impatiently for the policeman to do something. I could see the policeman was losing patience with the old guy. He tried getting hold of the old guy's arm and dragging him onto the pavement, but the old guy lashed out and started kicking a parked car. The policeman was looking up and down the street ever more desperately. The lorries and cars continued to blast their horns, and the old man continued shouting. I couldn't see him too well anymore because of a parked car blocking my view, but I could see the policeman had his stick out and was prodding the old man, trying to get him back onto the pavement. The old man kicked out with his foot. I don't know whether or not he did it deliberately, but his flailing foot hit a parked scooter and knocked it over. The policeman picked it up and the old man taunted him by shouting something. That was when the policeman finally lost it. He just snapped. He started whacking the old man with a stick, beating him about the head and body. Maybe the old guy had given him trouble in the past, or maybe the policeman was having a rough time at home. Whatever the cause, he was one hell of an angry policeman, because he was beating the shit out of that old guy. I couldn't believe it. Bystanders quickly faded away. The two waiters hurried back inside. No one wanted to witness this. That's when Janine appeared. "What's going on?" "Sit down and enjoy the fun," I said. "What? You're sitting there and watching an old man being beaten up? What's the matter with you?" She rushed out into the road, shouting something in Spanish. My waiter reappeared in the doorway just as the policeman swung round with his stick raised. It looked as if he was going to strike Janine. I started to get up, but the waiter put his hand on my shoulder and shook his head. Everything and everyone froze. The policeman's stick was above Janine's head. Even the old guy lying in the road had gone quiet. The second waiter was watching through the window. I could see the face of a lorry driver, his mouth gaping open. Everyone was watching and waiting to see what would happen. Maybe it was because the policeman knew everyone was watching, or maybe he finally realized that Janine wasn't a threat, but he lowered his stick and turned his back on her. He returned his attention to the old man. He put his stick away, took hold of the old man's collar and dragged him roughly back onto the pavement, as if to say he wasn't taking any more shit from anyone. Janine stood there looking shaken. Then she came over and sat down. She was deathly white. "You okay?" I said. She glared at me. "What the hell do you care? You didn't even get out of your bloody chair, did you?" "What was I supposed to do?" What were you supposed to do? What if he'd hit me? Would you have done something then? Or would you have let him beat me like he was beating the old man?" "But he didn't touch you," I said. No thanks to you. I can't believe you just sat there. What if I'd been carrying your child? Would you have done something then?" "I like to think if you'd been carrying my child, you would have had more sense than to attack a policeman who had his stick out." "I wasn't attacking a policeman. I was trying to save an old man from a beating, and I hope I never have so much fucking sense that I sit in my chair having breakfast while someone is being beaten up." "Come on, you don't know what was happening. You came in at the last minute and jumped to the wrong conclusion." "What are you saying? That the old man wasn't being beaten up? That I imagined it?" "You didn't see the whole thing. The old guy was being a pain in the arse. The policeman kept his cool for as long as he could. He was actually being remarkably restrained." Oh yes, I could see that. I've rarely seen anyone so remarkably restrained." "He did his best." "I know. I saw him doing his best to beat the shit out of a one-legged old man." "The fact remains you didn't see the whole thing." "You keep saying that. What the hell is the whole thing? What do you know about this whole thing? Do you know why the old guy was being a pain in the arse? Do you know anything about his pain or his arse? Do you know how he lost his leg? Maybe he's a war veteran, or maybe he's only recently lost it and is traumatized. Yeah, and maybe he's drunk." "Oh, so it's all right for the police to beat up someone who's drunk, is it? Are you sure about that?" While Janine was talking, a police van came along and stopped near the old guy. Two policemen got out. They helped the other policeman pick up the old man and throw him into the back of the van. Then they slammed the door and the van was driven away, and the original policeman, looking hugely relieved, walked off down the street. The fun was over. I looked at Janine. She still wanted to argue. I could see that in the set of her face. I stood up and went to pay for my breakfast. Maybe she was right. Maybe I should have done something. And maybe I should have agreed to have a kid in the hope of stabilizing our unstable relationship. I don't know. All I know is I didn't want to argue anymore. It wasn't a question of right or wrong. I just didn't want to argue anymore. That's it.